Before Zeus, there was a world of raw power, the age of the Titans. Born from the sky and earth, the Titans ruled everything. Their king, Cronus, overthrew his own father to seize the throne. The world was vast and wild, but Cronus ruled in fear. A shadow fell over the world and a prophecy whispered of rebellion. The age of the Titans was grand but destined to end in war. The prophecy was a poison that seeped into Cronus's mind. It came from his own parents, Uranos and Gaia. As he stood victorious over his fallen father, they warned him of his fate. They told him that just as he had overthrown his father, one of his own children would rise up and overthrow him. This was not just a possibility, it was a destiny written in the stars. Every time Cronus looked at his wife, Rhea, he did not see the woman he loved. Instead, he saw the mother of his future destroyer. The prophecy became his obsession, a constant nagging whisper in his ear that drove him towards madness. This fear led Cronus to commit an act of unimaginable cruelty. When his and Rhea's first child was born, a beautiful baby girl named Hestia, Rhea was filled with joy, but Cronus saw only a threat. He snatched the newborn from her mother's arms, and then, he did the unthinkable. He opened his great mouth and swallowed the baby whole. He imprisoned his own daughter within his body, believing that if she could not grow up she could never challenge him. Rhea was left weeping, her heart shattered. Her joy turned to horror and despair as she realized the true nature of her husband's fear. The horror did not end there. It became a terrible repeating nightmare. Each time Rhea gave birth, the same dreadful scene played out. After Hestia came Demeter, then Hera, then Hades, and then Poseidon. Each one was a beautiful divine child, a new god born into the world, and each time Cronus would seize the infant and swallow it, adding another child to the dark prison of his stomach. Rhea's sorrow grew with each birth and each loss. She pleaded with her husband, she begged him to stop, but his fear was stronger than his love. He was determined to defy fate no matter the cost. Rhea knew she could not let this happen again. As she became pregnant with her sixth child, she decided she had to act. She could not bear to lose another baby to her husband's monstrous paranoia. She went to her mother Gaia, the ancient earth goddess, and asked for help. Gaia, who had seen her own children imprisoned by Uranos, understood Rhea's pain. Together they devised a secret plan to save the last child, a plan to trick the fearsome king of the Titans. This child would be different. This child would survive. And this child's name would be Zeus. Rhea, desperate to save her child from Cronus, fled to Crete on Gaia's advice. In a hidden cave she gave birth to Zeus, the child of prophecy. To protect him, Rhea entrusted Zeus to the Adrastean nymphs. Her sacrifice would change the fate of gods and mortals forever. Rhea returned to the Titan palace, her sorrow hiding a secret. She followed Gaia's plan, wrapping a stone in swaddling clothes to fool Cronus. Cronus, blinded by fear, demanded the bundle and swallowed it whole, never realizing he'd been deceived. Rhea's relief was immense. Zeus, her true son, was safe, destined to change the fate of the gods. On Crete, young Zeus thrived in a secret magical cave, shielded by Gaia and cared for by wise nymphs. Fed on divine milk and honey, he grew strong and clever. Guardians drowned out his cries, keeping him hidden from Cronus. Each day the hidden king's power grew, preparing him for his destiny. On Mount Othrys Cronus ruled, believing his children were gone and the prophecy averted. But Rhea knew the truth. On Crete, Zeus grew strong, guided by Gaia and the nymphs preparing for his destiny. The age of the Titans was ending. The Olympians were about to rise. The time had come. Zeus, now powerful, stood on Crete's shore, destiny roaring in his ears. Cronus, king of the universe, could not be defeated by force alone. Zeus sought Metis, goddess of wisdom, who devised a cunning plan, a potion to make Cronus release his siblings. Zeus would infiltrate the court, disguised as a humble servant. Disguise was essential. With Medus's help, Zeus became a mortal servant, blending into Cronus's palace. Rhea, his mother, secured him the role of royal cupbearer. Each day, Zeus served his father, hiding his true identity and power, waiting for the perfect moment. At a grand feast, he finally slipped the potion into Cronus's drink. Cronus raised the golden goblet high. "To my unending reign!" he bellowed, his voice echoing through the grand hall. The other titans cheered. Zeus watched, his breath held as his father brought the cup to his lips and drained it in one long, satisfying gulp. For a moment, nothing happened. Cronus let out a contented sigh, pleased with the taste of the nectar. Zeus's heart sank. Had the potion failed? Had Metis been wrong? But then, a strange expression crossed the Titan King's face. A flicker of confusion, followed by a grimace of discomfort. He placed a hand on his stomach, a low groan escaping his lips. The groan grew into a terrible gut-wrenching rumble. Cronus's face turned from gold to a sickly green. He doubled over, clutching his abdomen as a powerful wave of nausea overwhelmed him. The feast fell silent as the other titans stared in shock and confusion at their convulsing king. This was no ordinary illness. A mighty power was at work, churning inside him, forcing its way up from the depths of his being. The potion was a success. It was working with divine and disgusting efficiency. The king who had swallowed his children was about to experience the most violent, universe-altering bout of indigestion in history. With a great heaving spasm, Cronus's jaw opened wide. The first thing to emerge was not a child, but the stone. The very rock Rhea had wrapped in swaddling clothes all those years ago shot out of his mouth. It flew across the hall and crashed into a pillar, a hard, cold reminder of the king's great deception. This was only the beginning. A second, more powerful convulsion seized him. This time, a fully grown god emerged from his throat. It was Poseidon, gasping for his first breath of true air, his eyes wide with confusion and anger. He landed on his feet, his divine power already radiating from him. The regurgitation continued in reverse order of how they were swallowed. After Poseidon came Hades, his form cloaked in shadow and an aura of solemn power. Then came the goddesses, the beautiful Hera, her gaze already regal and proud. Demeter, the embodiment of harvest and life, looking around at the world she had never seen. And finally, Hestia, the first to be swallowed, emerging serene and whole, a quiet fire burning in her eyes. One by one, the children of Cronus were freed from their fleshy prison, reborn as adult gods, confused but filled with an innate power and an immediate burning hatred for the father who had imprisoned them. The five newly freed gods stood together in the great hall, no longer helpless. They radiated power. Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Demeter, and Hestia, united at last. Zeus revealed himself, crackling with energy. "I am Zeus, your brother." Together, the Olympians stood as a new force, ready to challenge the old order. The great war between titans and gods was about to begin. In the ancient hall of Mount Othrys, Zeus and his siblings confronted Cronus. There would be no peace, only war. The Olympians stood united, declaring the end of Cronus's reign. The Titans refused to yield. So began a cosmic war, with Mount Olympus and Mount Othrys facing off, the fate of the world hanging in the balance. The call to arms echoed across the cosmos. Every god, titan, and primordial spirit had to make a choice. This was not a small family squabble. It was a civil war that would reshape reality itself. Most of the titans, bound by loyalty, family ties, and a fear of change, sided with their king, Cronus. His brothers, like the powerful Coeus and Creus, rallied to his banner. The mighty Atlas, a towering figure of immense strength, took a leading role as Cronus's general, preparing the Titan forces for a brutal and decisive war. They were the establishment, the old guard, confident that their ancient power and experience would crush this youthful rebellion easily. However, not all Titans were loyal to Cronus. Some remembered his own violent rise to power and saw the justice in Zeus's cause. Two of the most important Titans to switch sides were Prometheus and his brother Epimetheus. Prometheus was known for his incredible intelligence and his ability to see the future. He foresaw that the Olympians, with their passion and new kind of power, were destined to win. He tried to warn his fellow Titans to convince them to seek a peaceful solution, but they were too proud to listen. Seeing that their cause was doomed, Prometheus offered his strategic genius to Zeus. Zeus welcomed any allies he could get. He knew the Titans were formidable opponents, and he needed every advantage. The Titaness Metis, who had provided the potion to free his siblings, also stood firmly with the Olympians, her wisdom a crucial asset in their war council. Rhea, their mother, while not a warrior, supported her children from the shadows, providing intelligence about her husband's plans whenever she could. Even Oceanus, the great Titan who ruled the world-encircling river, chose to remain neutral, refusing to fight for Cronus. His neutrality was a significant blow to the Titan king, denying him a powerful ally. The battle lines were now clear. On one side, on Mount Othrys, stood Cronus and the majority of the Old Guard, the powerful Titans who represented the raw, elemental forces of the universe. They were strong, ancient, and deeply entrenched in their power. On the other side, on Mount Olympus, stood the 6 young gods, full of vigor and righteous anger. They were joined by a few clever Titans who believed in their cause. It was a classic battle of old versus new, of brute strength versus strategic cunning. The stage was set, the armies were gathered, and the cosmos held its breath. In the early days of the war, the fighting was fierce but indecisive. The Olympians were powerful, but the Titans were immensely strong and more numerous. Zeus knew they needed a greater advantage, a weapon that could turn the tide of the war. He learned from his grandmother Gaia of a group of secret allies imprisoned deep within the earth. These were his uncles, the Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires. They were also children of Gaia and Uranos, but Cronus, fearing their immense power and monstrous appearance, had kept them locked away in Tartarus, the deepest pit of the underworld. Zeus realized that freeing these prisoners could be the key to victory. He traveled to the dark realm of Tartarus and broke the chains that held his monstrous uncles. First came the 3 Cyclopes, Brontes, the Thunderer, Sterops, the Lightner, and Argus, the Bright One. They were giants with a single blazing eye in the middle of their foreheads. They were not just strong, they were master craftsmen, the greatest smiths the world had ever known. Grateful to Zeus for their freedom, they pledged their loyalty and immediately set to work in their forge, determined to repay their nephew with gifts of unimaginable power. For Zeus, the leader of the Olympians, they forged the most iconic weapon in all of mythology, the thunderbolts. They captured the very essence of the storm, crafting bolts of pure lightning that Zeus could hurl with devastating accuracy. The thunderbolts were not just weapons, they were symbols of his supreme power, the ultimate expression of celestial fury. For his brother Poseidon, the Cyclopes crafted a mighty trident. This 3-pronged spear gave him absolute command over the seas, allowing him to shake the earth, create massive tidal waves, and summon terrifying sea monsters to fight on their side. And for Hades, the brother who ruled the shadows, they created a special and terrifying gift. It was the Helm of Darkness, also known as the Cap of Invisibility. When Hades wore this helmet, he became completely invisible, able to move unseen through the enemy ranks, gathering intelligence and spreading fear and confusion. With these 3 divine weapons, the balance of power shifted dramatically. The Olympians were no longer just powerful gods, they were armed with the most advanced and fearsome weaponry the cosmos had ever seen. The war was about to enter a new and more violent phase. Even with their new, God-forged weapons, victory was not immediate. The war, which became known as the Titanomachy, or the War of the Titans, raged on for 10 long years. An entire decade of cosmic conflict shook the universe to its very foundations. The battles were on a scale that mortals could never comprehend. Mountains were torn from their roots and thrown as projectiles. The seas boiled as Poseidon clashed with the forces of Oceanus. The skies flashed with the unending light of Zeus's thunderbolts, and the heavens rang with the war cries of gods and titans. It was a brutal, grinding war of attrition. The Titans were incredibly resilient. Led by the mighty general Atlas, they fought with a savage fury. They were the raw power of the earth, stone, and sky, and they would not yield their dominion easily. For every inch of ground the Olympians gained, the Titans would fight back with twice the force. The world suffered terribly during this time. The constant battles scarred the landscape, creating new mountains and deep chasms. The fighting was so violent that the primordial creator gods, chaos and order, were said to have been disturbed from their slumber. The very fabric of reality was stretched to its breaking point. The war became a long and frustrating stalemate. Neither side could gain a decisive advantage. The Olympians had their divine weapons and Prometheus's strategic mind, but the Titans had sheer numbers and the brute strength of ages. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades would lead charges from Mount Olympus, their powers wreaking havoc on the Titan ranks. But the Titans would always regroup, their immense durability allowing them to withstand blows that would annihilate lesser beings. The 10 years of war were filled with heroic deeds and terrible losses on both sides, with neither able to land the final winning blow. Zeus grew frustrated. The endless conflict was draining his forces and devastating the world he hoped to rule. The thunderbolts, the trident, and the helm were powerful, but they were not enough to break the will of the Titan army. He realized he needed something more. He needed a force so overwhelming, so terrifying, that it could shatter the stalemate and drive the Titans back once and for all. He remembered the other prisoners he had freed from Tartarus, the ones even more monstrous than the Cyclops. It was time to unleash his final, most terrifying weapon, the 100-handed ones. The Hecatonkères, the 100-handed ones, were Zeus's secret weapon. Freed from Tartarus, they joined the Olympians, turning the tide. With 300 arms, they hurled mountains at the Titans, breaking their lines. The war ended in chaos. Zeus triumphant, the Titans defeated. With the Titans defeated, Zeus rose as king, ruling from Mount Olympus. He brought order and justice, earning the respect of gods and mortals. When the monstrous Typhon threatened the world, Zeus stood firm. Though wounded, he fought back with thunderbolts. Victorious, Zeus secured his reign as master of gods and sky. Hera, sister and wife of Zeus, became queen of Olympus after the war, embodying dignity and power. She ruled over marriage, women, and childbirth, but was infamous for her jealousy, especially toward Zeus's many lovers and their children. Her wrath shaped the fates of heroes like Heracles, whom she tormented from birth with trials and madness. Yet Hera could also be a fierce protector of those she favored, such as Jason of the Argonauts. As queen, she fiercely defended the sanctity of family, demanding respect and wielding her anger as a force that could shake the heavens. Hera remains one of the most complex and commanding figures of Olympus, her stories a testament to the power and peril of honor. Poseidon, brother of Zeus and Hades, drew dominion over the seas, ruling from his underwater palace with a mighty trident. He could calm or unleash storms, earning the title Earthshaker for his power over both sea and land. Sailors feared and revered him, offering prayers for safe passage. In a famous contest, Poseidon's gift of a saltwater spring lost to Athena's olive tree, naming Athens after her, and fueling his vengeful nature. He created the first horse and was often depicted riding a chariot pulled by sea steeds. Unpredictable and formidable, Poseidon was both respected and feared among gods and mortals alike. Hades, ruler of the underworld, presided over the realm of the dead, not as a punisher but as a stern, just king. His kingdom, guarded by Cerberus and encircled by the river Styx, was a place for all souls. Hades' most famous myth is the abduction of Persephone, which plunged the world into winter until a compromise allowed her to split her time between Earth and the underworld. This cycle explained the changing seasons and revealed Hades' cunning and resolve. Though rarely seen on Olympus, Hades' rule was absolute and his presence inescapable. He remains a symbol of the inevitable and impartial nature of death. Demeter, goddess of the harvest, brought abundance to mortals and suffered deeply when her daughter Persephone was taken by Hades, causing the seasons to change. Her grief and joy shaped the cycle of growth and dormancy on Earth. Hestia, goddess of the hearth, embodied peace and stability, quietly presiding over home and family. She never married, choosing instead to be the gentle, constant flame at the center of every household. While Demeter's myths explain the rhythms of nature, Hestia's presence was felt in every offering and meal. Together, they represent the nurturing heart of both the divine and mortal worlds. The first Olympians, Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, and Hestia, were siblings who overthrew Cronus and established a new order. Each ruled a vital domain: sky, marriage, sea, underworld, harvest, and hearth. Their relationships, forged in struggle, defined the balance of power on Olympus. Hades, though one of the six, rarely joined the others, ruling the underworld apart. Hestia later ceded her seat to Dionysus, but the core family remained the foundation of the pantheon. These six shaped the universe, embodying the essential forces of Greek life and myth. The Olympian family soon expanded with a new generation, many fathered by Zeus. With Hera, he had Ares, god of war, and Hephaestus, master craftsman. His affairs produced Apollo and Artemis, the radiant twins of sun, music, and the hunt. Athena, goddess of wisdom, born from his head, and Hermes, the clever messenger. Aphrodite, goddess of love, joined the pantheon, her origins shrouded in myth. These gods brought new powers and stories, filling Olympus with drama, creativity, and rivalry. Together they created the vibrant, enduring world of Greek mythology. The story of Zeus and the Olympians is more than myth. It's a legacy woven into our art, language, and imagination. Their presence endures in the stars, in the names of planets, and in the timeless struggles of heroes and gods. These ancient tales remind us, even in darkness there is always hope for a new dawn.